All right. Well, welcome back to Day to Day with Greg Michaelson. I'm here with John Forrest, a really great friend of mine, back from the Data Robot days. And I'm excited for a really good conversation with him. So thanks for joining us, John.
Great to be here. Great to be.
Oh, I seem to have lost audio. Why can't I hear? It must be my.
No, it's
Oh,
me.
I can
I
hear
was
now.
on mute.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
okay.
you didn't. It was me. I'd muted myself. But you heard
All
me
right, no
before,
problem.
right?
I
That's
did, and then
strange.
it
Good.
just went away.
That was weird. Okay.
Yeah, it must be the connection or something. No big deal. So anyway, welcome. Thanks for being here. Really excited to have a chat with you.
Yeah, I was just saying, it's great to be on a call with you again. Yeah, I miss working with you. So one
Likewise.
day. Although time's running out for me, I think.
Yeah, you and me both, brother. Awesome. So why don't you just start out, give us a little background on, how you got started doing what you're doing. And just so everyone knows, John's just about the best, technical customer support, like dealing with irate customers, solving hard technical problems kind of guy you could ever hope to have. So how'd you get into it, John?
Thank you. Yeah, how did I do that? Yeah, so before Data Robot, I worked for a company called Netezza, and I mistakenly had a joke with my boss. I was coming to the US actually to manage New York Stock Exchange and Bank of America as a technical account manager. And I jokingly said to her, hey, I could run, she'd fired 3 support directors. And I said, I could come and do that. So rather than go to Charlotte and sit in Bank of America's office, I ended up in Boston in Netezza's office and never looked back. So that switched me from, the more kind of pre-sales technical success account management type stuff to doing what I do now. So, yeah.
Do you prefer it? Do you prefer the firefighting to the sales?
Yeah, I think people get worried about if you get a collaborative, trusting relationship with a customer, you can usually overcome anything. If you don't have that, you can get into shouting matches, but you need to deal with that too. So yeah, it's not as hard as people think it is. I'm not sure why people get so worried about doing it, but hopefully the product's good enough. It never happens. So certainly that's true with my current company.
What is your current company? Tell us about. Tell us about Qdrant.
So I work for Qdrant. I called it Qdrant up until I joined. I was a user prior to that. My previous company was
it's spelled Qdrant, yeah?
Yeah, but you've got to pronounce it. It's all the pronunciation, right?
Qdrant.
German company. I'll say that's the German spelling, which maybe isn't true either. But yeah. I was my previous company. I was working for somebody who's trying to do what Data Robot did. We both worked together at Data Robot, tried to do what Data Robot did in a kind of similar way, but for mid-market customers. Mm-hmm. And then Gen AI hit. They went full-on Gen AI, and it's all chat-based. And they needed a vector database in there. Started with a competitor to Qdrant. Didn't work out very well. We switched to Qdrant. So I've been using it for a year, got to know the technology, and started talking to the sales leader and never looked back. So I'm excited to be here. So it's like the Ferrari of vector databases. That's how I would describe it.
So why would somebody need a vector database?
That is a good question. Yeah. So the general market of the Gen AI hype space is all going on about RAG. It's still going on about RAG. So it does form a foundation for RAG. But I think the real interesting use cases are semantic search. So you've got a catalog on your website and you want to be able to search for similar items in the catalog, both image and text and so on. Real tier 0 mission critical e-commerce type apps where you're doing semantic search. And obviously the flavor of the month is agentic AI, and the agentic memory. We're a good fit for that as well.
So, what do you mean by agentic memory?
So when you've got agents and you're going through things and interacting with the agents, they've got to store what they find out and be able to recover the most relevant parts as they go through the flow. So, vector database is a good place to do that.
I see. So if I've got like a really long conversation context with ChatGPT, say, then you might store that as a vector. You might shrink it down and then search it for the relevant data.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when you're going through a flow, you're going to reach out to grab things from websites or go and talk to other systems and pull back the context. Mm-hmm. and as you go through you can also interact with people as you go through the flow as well. But it's going to pull all that together. So there's kind of short term, this is what I need to do the next step, and longer term was all the things I've done and what I've pulled out. If I'm searching websites for, somebody gave me an example of ordering a pizza, right? If you want to order a pizza with a Gen AI agent, what you're going to do. So, yeah, it's
what are you going to do? Walk through that example.
What are you going to do? Probably not do order a pizza, and I don't think it's a bad example exactly. But I've done things like support ticket, automatic case handling type. And you've got the ticket, you've got other tickets the customer's open, so you've got relevant context you might want to search to feed into the flow.
How has the whole AI agent thing impacted the way that support works for you?
That's a good question. For me, not at all, right? I think that's a number of people said, well, it's going to go away. My previous CEO said, you don't need support. We've got Gen AI now, which just isn't the case, right? Because it's really an interpersonal problem rather than a technical problem. So if you can make something sound and look exactly like a human, I think with some empathy and, the trust I talked about, I think that's great, but we're way away from that, I think. So
yeah, no, I always skip all of that chat thing. My first thing is just representative.
Yeah, it's come a long way, right? I certainly have previous role put a number of those in place in big organizations, and they're a lot better than they were. But still, it's nicer to you want to have a discussion, a face-to-face discussion to somebody. So
yeah, I did see one. I was fooled by one back in Data Robot days. Somebody used a scheduler. It was an AI scheduler, and the way it worked is you just copied this scheduler, and she had a name. I think her name was Amy. I don't remember what app it was, but the person just copied Amy and said, hey, can you schedule this? And I exchanged emails with Amy for like hours before I realized that Amy was a bot. Yeah. And, I was talking, exchanging pleasantries with an AI agent. Of course, this was before agents happened, but yeah. So I think there are some limited contexts where you can be fooled, but most of the time, not so much.
I think that's changing, though. I do think it's changing, right? I do. I am a big fan of Transformers and Gen AI, and it's a very exciting development. So, yeah, in my career, it's probably the biggest. You got .com and iPhones and all that stuff. This is going to have that level of impact for sure.
It's definitely changing the way everything works. What do you have any examples of how kind of the support world has changed as a result of all this? I know you said you're focused on the relationships and on if somebody's angry, they don't want to talk to a bot, they want to talk to a human.
Yeah, so the things I've done in the past, like automated triage, a ticket comes in, an issue from a customer comes in through one of the channels, you can very accurately categorize it and prioritize it based on the content, right? An LLM could do a really good job of taking an email and looking at some customer context and history and working out what to do next. And that then leads you to, can I automate the next step? And for simple things, you can. So it's definitely a potential of stopping people doing mundane tasks, maybe not putting them out of the job completely, but when you get to more complex software, I think it's a different story. You've got to, you've seen things before, and you can make suggestions to a support engineer to go look at potentially.
Yeah, the software space is complicated, but I guess if you're doing like a e-commerce return or you have something like that, those kinds of things lend themselves really easily to a bot-based kind of support type thing.
Yeah, billing issues, all those guys. Yeah, software companies have those too, right? So maybe don't always go to support, but yeah.
So, all right, walk me through the John Forrest patented approach to an angry customer. So somebody's they're having a technical problem. They say, this software sucks. We're dropping our subscription. This is horrible. What's the John Forrest approach to handling these guys?
Yeah, so the usual kind of mindset is you just need to say yes to everything, and you can't do that. So it's always a yes and or a yes but, right? Because usually the customer's wanting something, either you can't deliver it and they maybe don't really need it. If they do need it and we can't deliver it, then you need to come clean and just say, hey, okay, goodbye, kind of thing. But most of the time it's not that. I've some examples.
Oh yeah, tell us a story.
Yeah, I see a CIO of a big I shouldn't drop names, so I won't. But a big, DC based mortgage type company. Like every month, the head of sales and I would go down and be yelled at because the system had issues that month. And every month we'd have the same conversation. Well, if you don't upgrade and put the bug fix on, you're going to have it again next month. So we'll see you next month, but go and apply the bug fix. So, it's just building making sure people understand what went wrong, and what are the paths, what are the options they've got to prevent it happening again and move forward with it. It's really just being collaborative. It's how do you get to the right end result with them, and be open and honest. And the most important, when you've got a terrible memory like me, you need to be consistent. So I need to know what I tell you now. I'm going to tell you the same thing in 2 weeks' time. So I'm not going to remember if I made something up. So don't make stuff up.
So store it in a vector database.
Oh yeah. That will change, right? I should do that. What did I say last time? Yeah.
Yeah. Is there an application for all of these meeting recordings? I'm looking for an AI agent, like an AI assistant.
There is. We use one. I will drop the name. We use one called Glyphic. It does a little bit of hallucination in there, but it does a pretty good job of, it records the meeting. It sits in the background with all the other agents listening away, but it's very much sales focused. So it kind of has a sales bias to it, but we use it pretty extensively. So I've seen a few others like that.
But is it, see, the thing that I want is like, I haven't really seen it, is this integration with life, right? So, I tried these, I've talked about it a couple of times. I've tried these wearable things that just listen to everything, and then they summarize it and stuff like that. The problem that I was having is that it can't differentiate between TV and reality. So I in this case, I was watching Vampire Diaries with my wife. You've seen Vampire, it's a stupid show. Also an awesome show. But my daily summaries started getting like interwoven with like vampires and dragons and witches and spells and such. So that was less than ideal. But there's got to be
about
like
context.
Right.
It's all about
like my phone should know enough about me to be able to remind me to do X, Y, and Z without me having to tell it to. So I'm completely willing to give up on that level of privacy in order to have that level of assistance. I'm
with you on that. And I think, so that's our next startup. Absolutely. There is no to-do list type system ever that has worked for me. It's got to be the last minute before I do what I need to do. As the bio you asked for this was like 10 minutes ago, you got it. But if it's integrated, I agree with that. If you integrate it into my my kind of, and it's learning from when I should have done something and when I did it, and how quickly, how I prioritized, which it absolutely could do. I could do that. I think I could improve the remainder of my working experience to be more efficient and effective than I have been previously. Sure.
Although I guess there's something to be said for only doing the things that are important enough to, that they stay top of mind.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. How do you measure that? That's the hard bit. And maybe there's it's not an easy problem. I wish it was.
I think the solution is to just create a Slack channel for every possible thing. And then
that's welcome back to Data Robot days.
Tell them about the Slack channel things. I take full responsibility. I built that.
Yeah. The automation in Salesforce was updated every customer channel like twice a week. So you were watching for things going on in customers, and then they all went white, and silence. I can't fight, so they kind of hid stuff from me. So you can't read them all.
We had this. The problem that we were trying to solve, or that I was trying to solve, was that we had loads of customers and a different set of people that were involved with each set of customers. And if something came up for that customer, you didn't want to have to go and dig for like, okay, who's the data scientist and who's the engineer and who's the support person and who's the salesperson and who's the customer, like the whatever, right? So I wrote some code to like pull all those people into a Slack channel for every different customer. So by the time, like Data Robot grew to a certain point, we had hundreds and hundreds of these customer support things. And it created so much noise that people just muted all of them and they became completely useless.
Yeah. And that, there was a thing, I think the start of last year, where Slack sent something out saying, "Hey, there's really exciting things coming. Gen AI's here. We're going to do great things." I'm still waiting. They could do a lot more for sure.
They could
But
do. In fact,
I still use it.
I wrote some code yesterday, day before, to use the Slack API to look at every message that I had access to on Slack, and then identify what was relevant to me and summarize it and give me some action items for the last rolling 3-day window. And so every morning at 5 a.m. that updates, and I start my day out by looking at Slack and saying, all right, what happened while I was sleeping? Because the company's based in Ireland, Zerv is based in Ireland. And so lots happens, while I'm asleep, because everybody's waking up and getting to work. They're 8 hours ahead of me. So, I can get up and open up Zerv and look at the code I wrote and the output and see the action items and all that kind of stuff, and see, what happened last night and what are people worried about and what's the vibe and that sort of thing. But that's just Slack. I need that for email. I need it for text messages. I need it for, Facebook Messenger, for WhatsApp. I need all of it like in one spot.
I think you've got a product that does that for you, right? Does that not allow you to do that? That's pretty much, you can pull the data. At previous company, Rapid Canvas, the CTO used their product to do just that. It would pull from HubSpot, Jira, and Slack and summarize what's going on in the customer each week and what the actions are and what's behind schedule and what's in, and it was a good place. You could then go and just chat with that aggregated information. So
I guess the danger, though, would be that you're so automated and so in the loop that you never end up talking to the customer and just figuring out what's on their mind. So there's got to be room for that interpersonal connection.
There absolutely has. Yeah. That's, and I think that's certainly something I've enjoyed is throughout the Netezza data robot experience was getting to that. And it's interesting. If you end up running a support organization, you see the senior team coming out and standing outside your office, looking through the glass. You go, this can't be good. But none of them want to go and have that terrible call. Those terrible calls are actually, if you come out the other side okay, you've got a better relationship with the customer. I was at a conference. There's a services and support conference in Vegas once a year. I don't know. I've not been for 10 years. I don't know if it's still going. But one of the HP support guys stood up and he had this chart of when you resolve a ticket, and it's, it goes down like this by day and you've not resolved it. And he said, there's a point though where you're better to wait, because if you wait another 4 or 5 days and then resolve it, it actually bottoms out and comes back up. So your customer sat gets better if you wait a little bit longer, which I think was a funny analogy. So I don't think the customers would agree. But honestly, if you've, I think most people think support, if I give you the right answer immediately, I'm giving you the best possible support. You don't get the best customer sat from doing that. Not saying you shouldn't do it, but if you actually, if you have an issue that you need to interact with the customer and take them through the process of solving it and work with them to get it solved, you end up with a better customer sat score for sure.
Wait, say more about that. I'm not following at all. So you're saying that if a customer's having an issue and you just immediately solve it, they're less satisfied than if you took some other route.
If they're less, or there's less of a relationship with us as an organization, I would say. So they don't, so you'll get a good, tick in the box, good support, but it's actually those personal interactions that tend to make the difference and get you, the net promoter score where you need the 9s and 10s to really make a difference. Those are typically given for when there's some deeper relationship with the client.
Gotcha. So the idea is if things get bad and then you show up in the nick of time and sort of save the day, that's better than if things never got bad in the first place.
Yes. I mean, if things never got bad, like if you got the perfect product, I don't know that that's true, right? If your product never fails, but I've never worked with a company who's had a product that never fails. So maybe yours doesn't, but
Zerv is perfect. We never have bugs.
Exactly. Sorry.
That's okay. Show him.
Yeah, he's off. Okay.
What kind of
Hopefully
dog
the noise cancelling's removing the barking.
Oh yeah, no. Riverside's actually pretty amazing. Their AI integration is, for everybody listening, we're recording on riverside.com, and they'll do they could remove the ums and the as and all that. One of the features I like the best about them is that they fix eye contact. So I'm not looking at the camera right now. It looks like I'm looking down on my screen, because my camera's up here. Yep. So if I look at the camera, I can't see you. So I'm never looking at the camera, but Riverside has a thing that will automatically move your eyes so that it looks like you're looking at the camera, as a, what do you call it? Post processing kind of step, which is amazing. You
Does
wouldn't
it
think you
do?
could do that.
I was using I did a lot of video demos for the previous company, and there's a software where you upload the video, and it'll take all my terrible, gaps like that one out of the out of the video altogether, and then translate it with my accent into Portuguese for Brazil, or Brazilian Portuguese, or Mexican Spanish. So I hear my own accent talking fluent, high speed Portuguese. I go, well, hopefully that's okay. And the
Wow.
team
Yeah.
in Brazil said, yeah, it's great. Sounds like you know what you're talking about. So
Yeah, no, I've never tried the translation thing.
yeah,
There is a company that a friend of mine, Ray, told me about. Ray Me. He was a Data Robot too. He was on the
yep.
podcast a couple weeks ago. Um, it's called 11 Labs, and you speak to it for 30 seconds, and then it replicates your voice, and you can have it say anything you want, which
Yeah.
is remarkable. So I
This
haven't gotten a
this did
chance
the
to play with that yet.
same thing, right? You record your video, and you go in and you edit the text, and then it plays the text sounding like you. It does sound just like you, same speech pattern. And then you say, okay, I'll translate into one of however many languages, and it gave it me back speaking perfect fluent Portuguese, which was
Yeah, I got
very proud of.
I
One
got
day.
my kids the new AirPods that do the auto translation. Do you wear them? I
Oh,
haven't had a chance to work on those yet, but it's definitely a brave new
does it
world.
work in Ireland? Maybe not.
Two countries separated by a common language. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So what at Qdrant, how is it different there than it has been previously? So the last 3 years have been pretty transformative with this whole AI agent thing. But at the end of the
Yep.
day, customer support, customer service is all about like relationships and fixing problems. Are things changing?
I mean, you've still got the same challenges with some. We're an early stage startup, so we've got a product that's moving very fast. And when you do that, you've got to try and bring the customers with you. So you've got customers on older releases that are hitting older problems that have long since been fixed. So I don't, those foundational problems are still there. You still got to deal with them.
Yeah.
And honestly, from a product perspective, we're in the middle of that, right? The agentic AI, we're one of the well-known vector databases, so RAG systems, we're widely used for solving that. But internally, we're at a size where we don't need to. I think that's, you're looking to, the question is, why are you doing it? Are you doing it to save money? Are you doing it to improve
Doing
customer
what?
experience? Using technology in the support process.
I
Or
see.
using it, and typically it's done to save money more than anything else, right? You want to reduce headcount, and
Sure.
and we're not in a place where it's consistent enough to do that. We've got customers doing all kinds of different things. So
Gotcha.
as we scale, we will see the change there for sure. I'm sure we will. But we've also got a fairly high bar, right? So it needs to be near perfect, and that takes a lot of work. You can get very good quite easily, but that last mile is hard to get.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gemini.
And there's nothing worse than watching a bot mess up an interaction, in retrospectively, right? Because then you're like, if only a person had been involved. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
How do you think
People
the,
mess up too, right? They do.
what's that, say it again?
People mess up occasionally as well, I guess. But
Yeah, that's true. In different ways, perhaps.
yeah.
What do, I'm really curious about your view of software CEOs, because you've seen a whole bunch of them.
Oh,
And,
that's a good question.
we've had conversations about these startup CEOs, and we maybe won't go into those details, but what do startup CEOs get wrong, and what do they get right in your experience?
Yeah, that's good. And it varies, right? I'd say I'm looking for my next Netezza. Netezza, the CEO is Jit Saxena, so I'm happy to throw his name out there because he's just a phenomenal guy. But had previous startups that were successful, and the culture was right. The whole atmosphere in the company. If you walk up to a Netezza person and say performance value, and they'll all say simplicity. They've all got that, and it wasn't drilled into them. It was part of the culture of the company. So I think that, you join a startup not because, hopefully there's an exit that makes you lots of money, but that's typically not the case, right? The probabilities are that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So you've also got to enjoy what you do, and I think the CEO is a big part of that. So, we both work for Jeremy at Data Robot, and I enjoyed it. I'll look back, and it's a close second, surprisingly, maybe a close second to how the Netezza experience.
Yeah.
So. I think some of the common things are, I've heard a number of people say, "Oh, we don't need salespeople, right? I don't need a salesman," and that's fine. If you want to sell, you can. If you don't need all the zeros at the end of the deals, then maybe you don't need a salesperson. But I think for most of the product space I'm in, salespeople make a big difference, and understanding how to enable them to sell and make sure that we're getting to the right people is important. And then not just be too precious about your baby. I think that's the other thing. If the product works like this because I want it to. It doesn't. No, it's got to work the way the customer needs it. That customer experience comes back into it. So.
Yeah, no, I just went through something like that at Zerv, that we made a fairly major change to the UI to make it a bit more similar to what people are used to from a software development, like a data science development perspective. Zerv's a data science and development environment, like an agentic coding environment. And, it was way different than what me and the other founders had designed back in the day. And so, I admit I was hesitant to see my baby get changed.
Yeah.
But it's definitely better.
You probably were right, but is there any point fighting against the momentum in the marketplace? I don't think so.
Yeah, you get comfortable with the way something works, and then it's like hard to change, right? Change is hard.
Yep.
A lot of times you'll see a button in an app that says like switch back to classic view. If they make a major change to the UI, like for QuickBooks, for example, does that. Like if you want to go back and look at whatever your bank register looked like, before they changed the UI, then that button is there. But you got to know that there's like dozens or hundreds of engineers that are like gritting their teeth over that button because they're having to sort of maintain two UIs and all that stuff, just because change is hard.
Or worse still, let me just interact through an API from a Jupyter notebook, which is, the previous company did that. Right? We've got to kill the Jupyter notebook. But yeah, and the functionality needs to be on par. It needs to be easier, but it's still you've learned to work in Jupyter, and you've got that expectation. So.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the space that we're in. Like most data scientists play in Jupyter notebooks, and that's fine and good. Jupyter notebooks were designed in a university in California, Berkeley, to be scratchpads, to be classroom scratchpads, and somehow they've sort of like grown into the tool of choice for data scientists, but they have tons and tons of problems. Like most of them are local instead of cloud-based. They're impossible to manage, like code versioning. They're super unstable. Like there's a lot of issues with notebooks, and yet motivating people to kind of like move into a new environment is still hard, which I suppose is not super unexpected. Have you encountered that much in your various careers?
Yes, yeah. Data Robot were bought companies which gave you a notebook in a nice, friendly, cloud-based environment, which I don't think it really paid for itself in terms of the effort we put in. But and a previous company, the data science team, the kind of the services guys going out delivering projects, were they would do most of the work in the notebook and then move it into the product afterwards initially. And so there was a good learning curve to say, what needs to happen in the product to stop them doing that? What do we need to see in there? So, and eventually you get to the point where I can make it better integrated, but still there's times when I want some kind of notebook-like editor to go and do stuff and just play around with it. So it was kind of a compromise as well, as you said. So
yeah.
I
mean, at the end of the day, I think you end up having to give people what they want, and that's not a bad thing, right?
It depends. Well, I don't know. It depends where they've worked. Like if they've come out of Amazon and they want all the Amazon look and feel and stuff, I think maybe it is, but I don't know. It's maybe my bias.
Maybe it is not the best idea, you mean?
Yeah, maybe it's not the best idea, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, changing user behavior is hard.
It is. Yeah, and I think that for a search engine, like Qdrant, it's people are going to use the API. So we've got a nice UI. I worked for Neo4j for years, same thing. It's a really fancy UI, and you can go through the graph. But actually, most people are just hitting the API and running it remotely. So
your users are primarily like super technical.
yeah, or
And
they're developers basically.
yeah.
Yeah, they're writing code and they're just
Yeah.
making calls and expecting stuff back. Right? So
And it's mostly a product that's used for enhancing the performance of agents, like a RAG tool.
I'd say the bigger use cases are really semantic search. So you're looking, you're searching for something in documents, and it's using transformers and embedding models and so on. The same stuff, but it's not done specifically for a kind of Gen AI solution. It's done for somebody browsing a e-commerce website saying, I want brown shoes that look like this pair.
Yes.
And uses the search to go and find those.
Gotcha. Do you think that will that technology be sort of like co-opted or replaced or supplanted by like ChatGPT?
That is a good question, right? Certainly, there was a movement to make sure that your website wasn't just searchable by Google, so it came up in the Google search. It now needs to be enabled so that the training models will go and train your context that's not visible in the website into the model itself, right? So there's a whole kind of way of dealing with your website now, so it does appear properly in GPT. I think the answer is no for that, though, right? Because you're even that's not the right answer. So if you look at how it used to be done with kind of full text search and image search, it was kind of gluing together very complex, heavyweight bits of technology. The whole vector search thing has changed that. It's much easier and simpler to do now. So,
and do the foundation models do that under the hood? I mean, is that sort of what's happening, right? Like if I asked ChatGPT to find me, a pair of brown shoes that looks like this one, it could definitely do that. Yeah.
I guess, but it must be reaching out. So it's be reaching out to website. It's not going to find it in the context, its own context of the model, right? I don't think. So could it be in a vector database? Yeah, definitely could be. But you'd have to, I'm guessing there's web search in there and it's doing some real-time stuff
Yeah,
as well,
definitely some web search, probably some image search type stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. See, that's the scary thing. Like OpenAI could just, or Anthropic or any of these other foundation models things, they can snap their fingers and swallow entire companies just by, using the magic of LLMs to solve these problems in an entirely different way. Should software companies be worried?
I think everybody to some extent seems to be a little bit worried, right? I don't know. But personally, no, I that's a good question. I don't know, right? I know at Data Robot, we used to see Terminator on the slides every so often, say, 2045, the singularity happens, and we're all killed. I think, repetitive people they're doing repetitive tasks, kind of just operational repetitive tasks. Those could be automated. You could just go and automate those away. So I guess yes is the answer to that question, but it's not, the model itself isn't doing it. It's how you pass the context. I think the interesting thing is where the model starts to not just take the input process and give me the output, but it's actually going and doing more internally. I mean, there's kind of a little bit further it needs to go there before it's really going to be very scary. But it'll get there, and it will be very scary, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm not so worried about like individuals, but as entire companies. I saw this LinkedIn post where somebody, I don't recall who, was talking about, how OpenAI probably has a list of like feature requests and sorted by like value. And, they could snap their fingers and satisfy one of those. And then suddenly 10 startups blink out of existence because now OpenAI does this thing. Although I suppose AWS has had that same sort of capability for the last years, and it hasn't been an impediment to innovation.
Yeah. I think you're in that kind of evolutionary expansion, and at some point there's going to be a mass extinction event and people will disappear, and I'm sure that's coming as well, right? You saw that with all of these big boom, .com, everything went crazy, and then
right. So we live in a world where there's 10 trillionaires and nobody else has anything, and it's kind of dystopian, that sort of situation.
Yeah. That's the future, I think. As long as we're the trillionaires, it's fine, right?
Yeah, that's dark. That's dark, John. You
Yeah,
took it
no,
to
no,
a
I
dark
don't.
place.
No, I don't think it's that bad. I don't think so. I think like my son's just graduated with a master's in physics,
Hmm.
looking at kind of data science type career. It's
Hmm.
hard to get a entry level, a new grad. New grads are struggling to find jobs now, but he's got to embrace the technology and work with it. And I think that's the difference, right? So you can do a lot of really cool things that you couldn't do 2, 3 years ago, right now. And so in any space, it's worth applying the technology, and you'll do well, I think.
Why do you think it's harder or for new grads to find entry level positions than it
I
was,
I
say,
think
15 years ago?
I
Or I
that
guess I'm assuming the answer. Do you think that's the case?
uh yes and no, right? It depends on where you decided to. If you're going to do a degree somewhere other than, if you're in the US and you're doing a co-op or something, then you've got a possible entry into your first job out of that, right? So that was a good tip, which my son didn't follow. Um, so yeah, I think people believe the hype that Gen AI will just replace a certain set of fairly, those entry level jobs where you're learning to do something. And certainly, like I had a guy at a previous company who was a really brilliant coder, just one of the best guys. And he was in my services team, one of the best guys I worked with. And he pinged me and said, "What should I learn? I'm going to have to um, learn some generative AI stuff somehow. What should I go and learn?" So I pointed in the right direction. And it's he spent a big chunk of time in his career being the go-to guy to write the code. And now I can go and write it with Cursor, and I do, right? And it's terrible, but yeah, I don't need to. It doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to
Right.
work, and
Hmm.
so, so I think, yeah.
Not that terrible, though. I mean, the large language models are outrageously good coders.
The issue comes when you iterate, right? So I typically fire up a Streamlit because I can't, reporting out of Jira is a nightmare. So you fire up a Streamlit app against and you say, well, it'd be nice if and you start tweaking. And there's a point where the tweak breaks the code and you have to start explaining to the whatever you're using that it was getting it wrong and why it was getting it wrong. So
Yeah.
good coding practice still applies. You want to break things up and only change the bit. So you only break the bit, not the whole thing. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah, I
But,
think we're at sort of like large language models can get you from 0 to 0.7.
a lot.
And
Yeah.
then the 0.7 to 1 is hard.
Yeah.
Because
That's true.
now not only do you have to write it, but you also have to like figure out what the large language models did in the first place.
Exactly.
And
Yeah, overdid, right? Sometimes
yeah.
you get, well, this is the best way to write this. Yeah. I'm not
We've
sure I
actually
agree,
juggled
but
with that a lot. So the coding agent in Zerv the thing about Zerv is that it can look at your entire project space and see your file system and your database structure and all the output you produced and the charts and the graphs and the variable values. All of that's in the context. So it can see all of it. So if I want to, pardon me, if I want to look at a new data set, I'm uploading a CSV file or I'm evaluating, the last 6 months of data in my Databricks setup or whatever it is, I can say, I could just tell the agent, go out and have a look at the data and tell me what you think. And then, it can see its results and sort of iterate, right? So that's kind of been the place where we're a bit differentiated from like the code that ChatGPT might write or Claude Code or Cursor or something like
yeah.
that. Is that we're super focused on the data and incorporating that into the coding process. Whereas a lot of the other large language models, like if you use ChatGPT, you've got to like teach it. Like, okay, I have a file and these are my variable names, and and then
Yep.
your context window like rolls off of that and it forgets all that stuff. And then the iteration. I think you're right. The iteration piece is the challenging part. If the large language model can one shot the problem, then you're golden. But
Yep.
if
Yep.
it gets something wrong or makes up something that doesn't exist, then it might be time to like scrap it and start again with a different prompt and see if you get
I've had to
lucky
do
the
that.
second time.
You get to 0.9. I've been to 0.9 with a really nice UI, doing everything I wanted, and I said, I just want to have a drop down filter here, and I kill the software. I have to throw it away and start again.
Yes, exactly.
Because I'm not using GitHub and I'm not using what I should do to version it and so on. So yeah.
The undo capability
those integrations
is
make
important.
It is, yeah. And I'm not one to. I did sign up and do a few of your tutorials and like the product, but I need. I'm one of those guys. I need a project to go and play with it properly.
Yeah.
But if I have to read a manual, I'm not. I don't think the software's. It's too hard,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No,
So,
I'm totally with you. But
it's good.
it's I think the large language models have opened things up for people that are technical and can sort of think programmatically.
Yeah,
Like my old.
I'm a certified Java programmer, C programmer. I hate Python, but I have to go to everything's in Python now, so
Why do you hate
stuck with
Python?
it. I don't know. It's like things shouldn't be, or my alignment shouldn't matter, right? I mean, one of the best bits of code I've seen is as a C programmer, you write a program, and there's this little program that looks like a train, and when you run it, it outputs choo choo. So and you can format it so the text looks like a steam train, which you couldn't do in Python. So that's the main reason I can't do a steam train.
No street steam
program.
train programs.
Yeah, no, it's I did Fortran in my very early university days, and like the whole punch card. I'm not punch card elderly. I'm not that old, but you still got to write Fortran in that way, and I've not got over that pain.
I see. It's a PTSD type issue.
It is, and I just like indentation shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. Anyway, that's been
all right. What's coming in the next 5 years, John?
That I am looking forward to the next 5 years. I have to say, and the models, they kind of, I feels like they've plateaued a bit. And I know you say, okay, OpenAI can go in, but it feels like they're wrapping it around the core model. It's not inside the model itself. So I'm interested to see what happens when the model's not just passing through and giving me the answer, it's actually going off and doing other things. So the agents kind of get built into the model itself.
Yeah.
I think there's an interesting, I did my master's thesis was writing a neural network with a biology professor, and we were interested. There was this paper about rat brains, and if you teach a rat to go through a maze, if you then go and cut a slice out of its brain, it doesn't do as well at learning the maze, which is a little bit cruel and unpleasant. We didn't do the cutting bit, but what we were trying to do is say, can we simulate that in the software? And this was a long time ago, and the answer was no, we couldn't, not even close. But I think now, if I go get the Mistral model and start hacking away at it, I can see how it's I bet that like the HAL 9000, you pull the things out and its speech degrades. I should be able to see how brain damaging a model replicates what's actually going on in my neural network inside, right?
So like, can you take, Claude or whatever, and give it a lobotomy so that it,
a little bit of a shake, right? But just yeah.
I don't know. Do you think that the current architecture of how these large language models work is a dead end? I read an article about saying these things can do amazing feats of marketing content and coding and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, the architecture is flawed and they'll never advance beyond a certain point. That's a possibility, right? That this is a dead end technology that gets us way further than we were, but can't actually get us to.
Yeah, and I think there's another leap, right? It's a stepping stone to the next. And I think the worrying thing for me is that there was a research article where 4 or 5 people went and tried to figure out why a certain input to the model gave a certain answer, and it took them months to just figure out the path and what happened. So really understanding what's going on inside is, people say yes, you do, but really not so much, I think. Right? So
a fool's errand, maybe.
Yeah, and but there's enough. I think my retirement plan is go and try and do a PhD where I do start trying to replicate. You pull a bit out of one of the open source models and see how your results of it change over time, right? Just simulate
induced brain damage in
exactly
large language models.
Exactly. Yeah, just slow some bit of the network down.
Can you give it dementia?
Exactly.
Okay, wow.
My clock's running out. Before I get dementia, I've got to go and play with that, right? I don't want to hear it's already too late. I know you're going to say.
I actually was trying to put that exact joke together, but I couldn't make it work. You beat me to it.
Yeah. No, it's yeah. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think is going to be? I mean, you don't feel I've seen a lot of data robot folks go off and do great things. You being one of them. So you're not worried that OpenAI or somebody's going to come and just kill you. Like Notebook LM's doing things that genuinely some of the research stuff that can do is, is putting people out of a job. You know, there's no need to go and get 6 people go and study stuff. I can do it in a couple of hours with Notebook LM now. It doesn't charge me. It doesn't cost me anything to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always about the glue code, right? It's always about like the implementation and the orchestration and all that sort of stuff. So, that's kind of the moat that Zurb has, is that we're not just a sort of like a fancy API for one of the foundation models, and we do code in a special way. We also handle things like, cloud orchestration and resource management and version control and collaboration and, all those kinds of things that you really, really need. But, if you've got VS Code and you've got ChatGPT, you can sort of like backwards, you can sort of back into it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So,
yeah.
So
I don't think it gets you where, I don't think that gets it where you need to be. I do think you need what you do. I think you still need it, right? I mean, because at the end of the day, all your data is sitting where it's been sitting for the last 10, 15 years. It's not moved somewhere else. It might be in S3 buckets more than it was 10 years ago, but there's still databases that have been around forever. And,
Yeah.
So.
But, I suppose when the models and the agents and get good enough that you can tell them to do something and not have to worry about whether they did it or did it correctly, that there will be some major sort of societal transformations for that sort of stuff. But I think we're a long way from even them doing it correctly, let alone people just being able to sort of willingly trust that they can do it correctly. Like the Tesla self-driving stuff. It's pretty amazing the way that Teslas can drive themselves around town. In fact, I think I read somewhere that when you buy a Tesla in Austin, that the car delivers itself to you, without a driver, which is pretty cool. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe it's just an urban legend, but we got a Tesla a few years ago, and I was totally uncomfortable letting that thing drive. Like, we'd come to a left turn and I'd be like, yeah, no, give me control. I need it. And so
yep.
I'm not super worried, but I am super eager to use all of these things. So I definitely want to get to the place where I can trust my Tesla to make a left turn, or I can trust my iPhone to remind me if I've forgotten to, get ready to go to this school event or whatever, that sort of thing.
Yep. I'm looking forward to that. So that will help me a lot. That somebody who understands what I should be doing and reminds me to actually do it. That personal assistant is definitely could
be amazing. But then, at the same time, I think that, like, for example, people don't know how to get places today because of GPS, right? Nobody's ever had to learn how to drive to somebody's house without, getting turn-by-turn directions in their dashboard. So it's like, the human brain is sort of atrophying in some important ways, I think.
That's
as well.
Yeah, and that was a valid concern, that the models are trained on what's available to them, and it's spitting out new stuff, but the new stuff is really based on so it's interesting to see, the new drug developments were attributed partly to LLMs, basically. Researchers were collaborating with large language models,
like everything nowadays is a copy of a copy of a copy, and maybe it degrades over time. I don't know. So I think there is a challenge there for people to like continue to build and maintain their curiosity, and
it definitely makes you more efficient though. I can do things I couldn't I can do things I couldn't do 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
There's no question about that.
Yep.
Well, John, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on and chatting with me. It's good to see you. Next time I'm in Boston, we're going to have to swing by and grab a beer or something.
I'll look forward to it. Yeah.
All right,
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Have a good 2026.
Likewise. Bye.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye.